Hello and welcome to In Conversation. I am your host, Ndapewa. Today I'm joined by Sinazo Xaba, who is a lecturer right here at the University of Johannesburg in tax. Tax, of course, is something that a lot of people find intimidating at first, and our guest here today is passionate about making it accessible and easier to understand in the classroom. Sinazo, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Ndapewa?
Good. We're matching. Can you
We
see?
are.
Like we connected in spirit, and we were just like, you know what?
It would
We're
actually
matching.
seem
Black
like
and
we
brown.
actually planned it out.
Yeah, they'll
yeah.
think that they planned it, but no, we just got a little...
We could feel it.
We could feel
Yes.
it. So you lectured Taxation 3AB, as I said, like right here at the University of Johannesburg. What first sparked your interest in tax, a field that a lot of people, like I said, find intimidating?
Yes, 100% Ndapewa. I do lecture tax at the University of Johannesburg. I think it's a very interesting one because you would actually expect that from that question it would be like oh no, I just loved it and then I went in. But it's very interesting that actually my first option of specialization was internal auditing. Until I received a letter from the university saying that actually you need to deregister and register for tax because the lecturer had resigned.
Sure.
Yes. And so then the following year I was actually stuck with tax, honors in tax, because I had to deregister for the other and register for the other. And I can actually just say that for the first year of doing that, kind of specializing in that, was like, I need to finish what I started.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even a passion thing until I actually went into corporate and I was like, okay, there's actually life to tax. And then, I obviously then find myself here now and I'm just like loving it. So, but it was like a work in progress in terms of falling in love with it.
Like a slow burn kind of love, not love at first sight.
Yes, 100%. It wasn't love at first sight at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's awesome. And you're passionate about making it easy and accessible, right? So what are some of the strategies that you use to simplify a subject that many students struggle with?
100%. I think like every year you kind of are faced with that where you're like, how do I take what looks intimidating and like put in front of the class and make it easy, right? So like it's kind of different things. I think the first thing really is for me as a student, so back in the day, what did I like about a lecturer who made it easy and what did I not like about a lecturer who did not necessarily make it easy? So it's almost like finding out what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy. But I think some of the things are like a learn as you go for me. So I do know though that you know how like tax is such a rules-based module where like there's like rules, stick to the rules. It's either this or that, and kind of like making scenarios applicable into that. But I think for me, one of the things that I've had to do is to actually take real life scenarios. So I don't know if you've done accounting, but I know, for example, when I was an accounting student, you'd probably get like examples where it's like company A and company B, and that kind of lacked the life, right? And so then the ability to then bring real life scenarios that students that you are actually lecturing are able to relate to and bring them in front of the class to kind of like help them make those rules and that law applicable to what they do on a life-to-life basis. The one other thing, so not so long ago, we actually met up with WITS, and there was like WITS and NWU, and we were like on a symposium, an educational symposium, and like different people were sharing different ideas in terms of just how to lecture better in this kind of digital world. And the one lecturer shared about a tool that they use, and it's a tax workbook tool. And so I've actually this year like kind of introduced that in terms of my class, where I actually kind of take what would be difficult and I put it into what is called like a tax handbook for us. And then I kind of also put in some like, tax returns so that they actually see if I am dealing with the numbers, how does it actually look like in real life and why am I actually doing what I'm doing? So it's like, look, doing different things, but make it more applicable and relevant to the students.
Yeah, tax workbook, what does that look like?
So it would actually look, so firstly, it's like what I do is that I would actually like set the scene in terms of in real life, how does this look like? So before we get to the calculations, how does it actually look like between the taxpayer, the tax practitioners and SARS themselves? And then we would then have like just like little scenarios where it's just asking questions, but the questions are probing the student to think beyond just the, I guess as they see the section, but like what are the other ways in which the section is applicable? What are the other ways in which this can be tested? And then right at the end, you then kind of, bring some of the interesting things that are happening in the industry in terms of the topic that you're dealing with, to say, did you actually know that this is currently happening?
Right.
And then right at the end, you're like, oh no, but a tax return actually looks like this, right? So kind of a combination of everything, because you want to have a student who knows the law, but is also able to apply the law in real life.
In real time,
100%.
in real life, yeah.
Yes.
And I think I needed you as my teacher in high school, because you asked me if I did accounting. Oh, no. I left it in grade 9. I said, oh, no, I'm done.
What
so
did
I needed
you
you. Business, drama, geography.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm more of like a
creative.
Alrighty, you've completed a master's in South African and international tax. How do you see South Africa's tax system evolving, and where do you hope to contribute to the tax policy in the future?
Thank you. So I'm actually glad that this question comes, after I've actually completed the master's, because I think there's something that happens when you're doing research where you kind of like focused on what you're actually doing. So if this question had come at that time, I would have been like, actually what I'm seeing is what I'm doing.
100%.
But no, there's a couple of things happening. I mean, just even you could see from the budget speech that has just happened. But I think the two things that are like, for me, are noteworthy is, just like the digitalization of, I guess, SARS themselves. I think SARS is like more, incorporating AI into the way that they do things to kind of try and like make, things easy in terms of compliance, in terms of, I guess, just, efficiency and the ability for people to have access to the institution itself. But I think the other thing that I actually, have been finding quite interesting in terms of what's happening is just like in the broadening of the tech space. And, I don't know if you saw recently that SARS is now coming for influencers.
Yes. Now they're required to pay tax.
100%, and I think a couple of years ago that would not have been an issue. You're just like, oh no, I'm an influencer and everything is great. Yes. But it's just like to broaden the tax space, there's other things that are being put into the scope of what is taxable, what is not taxable, what are some of the definitions that we can give into the different, kind of aspects, so that we determine what is taxable, so then we can expand the tax rate. So like those are the two things. But I think the main thing, the integration of AI into this whole system for me is like revolutionary, right? Also just the, how that also fits into what we do in education, and how we cannot afford to bring out a student who is not aware of that into the workplace, right? So to be able to then kind of integrate all of that in university, so that a student who gets out is quite comfortable with that.
Yeah, and speaking of AI, I always ask everybody in every different profession, like, do you think AI is coming for your career? Do you think you're going to be replaced very soon? 100%. And with what you do you think that, is it in danger? Is AI taking over?
So I'm actually like the question, like I've actually asked a couple of people, and like the first responses are never.
Exactly.
Never. No, not necessarily. I think because there's so much rules and there's so much detail in terms of tax that there's still room for interpretation. I think AI just comes in as a way of bringing in efficiency and working things out to like more faster and better. That instead of like, having these queues, during a tax season, that, like things are now done seamlessly in the comfort of your home, right? And so that is quite great, but I don't think that it's completely going to, come and like replace a tax practitioner. I think, there's still, AI still, has errors, and you still have to be able to detect that and say, no, actually, this is how the rule is applicable, and this is what AI actually brought in, but this is not accurate data according to what I received in a specific year of assessment. So 100% not. I just think that efficiency then kind of like works for everybody.
100%. Alrighty. And a key part of your dream is improving access to tax education for the least advantaged, right?
100%.
Why is tax literacy so important for building a more equal society?
100%. I think one of the things that actually like sparked that, just like as a background, was the fact that I come from a very small town in the Eastern Cape.
I also come from a small town.
Are we like
besties?
100%. And I think one of the things is like you are living your normal life, and or like your parent is living a normal life, and one day there's a garnish order against them, and like money is taken away from their bank account, and they don't know how, but somehow as they realize it's actually, you know, a SARS debt that has actually taken place, and they've taken money. And so I think the more that I saw a lot of, you know, those cases happening, it was just like, actually, I think there's people who don't have access to tax education that I think it's actually necessary, because I think you need fairly, like I think that you must pay taxes not from a place of I wasn't aware, but that you know exactly what was expected of you. That when you said yes, for example, to being married in community of property, you know what the tax implications are, right? And what that means for the both of you guys. And I think that then kind of like brings in, you know, equality, equity in terms of, you know, people are expected to pay taxes, but at the same time, you have the educational basis, you have the educational background, and you know exactly what is expected of you. At least the bare minimum, or you know that the taxman exists.
Exactly.
And they are coming for something from you.
And they will come for it, because we've even seen, you know, some of our public figures who, you know, have lost a lot because they just go years and years 100%. And years, and then boom, SARS is like, oh, hey, by the way,
you need to 100%. And then you're just like, actually, I didn't even know. I didn't even know. And for me, I don't even think it's ignorance. I think there's certain subjects that just must be part of everyone's day to day. And I think actually tax must probably even form part of like the primary school education, the high school education. Absolutely, so that even students, they are able to kind of bring it home. Bring it home,
And I'm a big advocate for, you know, being a well-rounded human being and just doing it all. And I believe you do mountain biking, 100%. You know, you're into healthy living, and you even play chess, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. How has that, how do all these things influence how you think?
So, it is quite so for me, growing up, so I always like to start with the background. So growing up, I actually struggled with physical activity, just physical sports generally. And so I tried out the different sports. And then finally it's like, then I bumped into chess. And I was like, I'm actually great at chess. And that was the only thing. But I think like the more that I grew up, it just felt like I was defining my life in terms of just, you know, the only like thing I can do is kind of chess in terms,
smart people things,
100%. Not smart people, you get what I mean?
I could never play chess. I'm like,
and so I had to broaden that also, just my I guess my comfort zone, right? But I do think though that it also forms a huge part of like my mental capacity kind of thinking, in the sense that I think my physical strength that is built up in the physical activities like your mountain biking, you know, the ability to actually like go beyond my fears while I'm there, kind of like flows into what I can do, kind of, you know, from a mental perspective, right? So I think that is, you know, kind of it plays both ways, like physical strength, but also, not so long ago I actually discovered I don't think that physical activity is now optional for me. I think it's a necessity, because it just fuels how I think, my mood, how I show up in life, right?
So what kind of mountains are you looking into in terms of mountain biking? Are you looking at Everest, Drakensberg? What mountains do you want to conquer?
No. So so in terms of just mountain biking, so I'd normally just go to like a trail, right? There's a trail in Pretoria. There's one in Muldersdrift as well. So normally do that. But I've watched a lot of people climb Mount Everest, climb Kilimanjaro. I think if I were to go, I'd do Kilimanjaro. Probably in like the next 5 years, perhaps when I finish my PhD. It's like as a cherry on top.
100%.
Let's go.
I can also do that.
You know what I mean? Yes.
I love it.
100%.
And there's a quote that you like. I believe it says, the opportunity of a lifetime needs to be seized during the lifetime of the opportunity. What does this message mean for students who are navigating university and thinking about their future careers?
Oh, it's a very, very great quote of mine. I think it's just like this sense of looking at life sober-mindedly. And this means that if you are in university, someone wanted the space that you've gotten in university, and that kind of sobers you up, because then it means you got an opportunity that someone else didn't get. And I think it's that where you must then grab it with both hands, use every single resource that has been given to you without any excuse. Obviously there's things that are beyond our control that happen that could hinder us getting our degrees and whatever the case is. But my thing is, if you have been given an opportunity that is a lifetime opportunity, which means there's someone there who's looking for the same opportunity, and you waste it away.
Sure.
There is a time span, or there is a lifespan to the opportunity, and there's a time where it's going to come to an end, and you will wish that you had actually seized the opportunity while it existed, right? So,
especially if you come to the great University of Johannesburg. I mean, the acceptance rate is so low. So if you're here, really, truly, you are the chosen one.
You know what I mean? You are the chosen one. And so if you get here and like 2 years later, you forget that this was once a prayer point for you, then it's just like you are wasting an opportunity of a lifetime. And I think it also just extends beyond just university, right? I think anything, like I approach life with anything, like this itself is an opportunity of a lifetime, and it must be seized within the lifetime of the opportunity, whether like it's a long time or a little time, but make the best of every opportunity that you get.
Absolutely. Sinazo, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank
Lovely
you so
chatting
much.
with you. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it. Catch me on the next episode of In Conversation. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff. It's been amazing.